And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Thursday, August 14th. We're getting closer and closer to Christmas. Well, let's not push it, but it doesn't quite feel like August, although it's not a bad day out there. Temperatures currently in the lower 80s across the area, which is pretty close to normal. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel, and it's going to feel like summer today, Bridgette, but well, it's not going to last long, as we've got a cold front that could bring some strong to severe storms overnight tonight. But even that's not a given, so it's going to only be about 20-30% coverage on that late tonight.
Well, we've had quite a bit of rainfall last night. There were areas down Brown County, which is around Aberdeen, South Dakota, over towards Britain, that received over 3 inches of rain overnight. Yeah. We get down to the Fort Ransom area. They also saw another 2 inches of rain last night. So we've got some very wet areas in the southeast part of the state, the northeast part of South Dakota, where they're really struggling to try to continue on with some small grain harvest.
Yeah, it is a Rutland, $1.28. Fingal checked in with $1.69. Milner just under an inch. Brampton a little over 2.5, or right around 2.5 inches. So, yeah, that's to our south of the FM area. Man, they got hit hard, like you said, down into South Dakota. Cluster after cluster of thunderstorms kept developing over the same area, unfortunately.
Very unfortunate. So they truly are looking for some help, you might say, and some drier weather. And I'd like to see that come as well.
Well, we do have some drier weather coming, but we're still under the influence of a frontal boundary that's going to be kind of meandering back and forth across the area over the next 3 to 5 days. And not everybody's going to see the rain, and hopefully we can disperse this in different areas. But for today, we're going to be dry. So today's a dry day, plenty of sunshine, a little bit of a wind out of the south blowing about 10 to 25. And temps today, we're currently in the low 80s, should make it up into the mid 80s today with those south winds about 10 to 25 and gusty. Now, there's a slight chance of an isolated storm tonight on a cold front. This will be after about 10 o'clock. And if they do develop, and there's a big if, they could be severe, and they'll turn severe quickly with large hail and damaging winds being the main threat. And then Friday looks to be a dry day, highs in the low 80s. And then another round of storms possible Friday night. Again, coverage on these aren't going to be that great. And then temperatures over the weekend in the 70s with, again, an isolated storm or two. They can't be ruled out. I think the heaviest is going to be, unfortunately, down to our south, where those heavy rains just fell. I think areas of South Dakota into extreme southeast North Dakota and western parts of Minnesota, basically the same areas that just got hit, have the best chance of getting hit over the next 3 days. Not good news for them, that's for sure.
Not necessarily, no. And even just a little bit of wind, some drier temperatures would move things along. I had a message from our farm cooperator today, Jim Euland. He mentioned that it's still pretty green down in the canopy on the tillers, so he has not moved into harvest mode quite yet this week. We need to wait for that to move along a little bit. We need that crop to finish maturing before we go out for harvest.
Good deal. Well, hey, we didn't get to weather trivia yesterday, so how about we hit that now in this segment?
Yeah, we really ran out of time yesterday.
We did run out of time yesterday.
I just want to point out, I got a ton of compliments about our assistant ag director yesterday, Thomas Jewett.
Oh, he's so good.
The Rogers area.
Right.
He was fabulous, so just thanks to him for joining us.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so we're going to be giving away one of our Darter Plastic rain gauges today. And again, here is the trivia question. All right, starting in 1954, the National Weather Bureau, that's what it used to be called, used to refer to me by female names due to my temperamental and erratical nature. That's not me saying it, that's just they changed this later on when the National Weather Service decided to name me after males and females. What am I? And what year did the change occur? Okay, once again, starting in 1954, the National Weather Bureau used to refer to me by female names due to my temperamental and unpredictable nature. That's kind of a slap in the face to females, I would have to say. But it was back in the 50s, and so we know how things were back then.
Well, I have some jokes about this whole situation, but we'll just wait with those.
Okay. And they changed this later on when the National Weather Service decided to name me after males and females. What am I, and what year did this change occur? We'll go to caller on line one. Caller, what's your name and what's your guess?
It's Ken, and I'm going to say it's hurricanes.
Correct. What year?
And the year they changed it, I want to say about 84.
No, Ken, a little earlier than that, but good guess. Good guess. All right, caller line two. Can I get your name, please?
Yeah, Pete.
Pete, what's your guess?
Hurricanes.
That's correct. And what year?
1955.
No, Pete. Sorry. Good guess, though. All right, caller on line three. Can I get your name?
Linda.
Linda, welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. What is your guess?
It's hurricanes.
Right. And what year?
And the year though is what I'm not sure of.
I'll give a hint out. It was in the 70s.
This is 70. I'll say 75.
No, Linda. Hey, good good guess. Good guess. All right. Caller, what's your name and guess?
Jeff.
Jeff?
And yeah, my guess is hurricanes in 1979.
You are correct. Yes, it was hurricanes, and they changed it in 1979 to name it after both males and females. Congrats, Jeff. And we're going to put you on hold, and our producer, Addison, will take all the information. And you know where our stations are?
Yes.
All right. Then Addison will get the information. You can swing by our station and pick up your rain gauge. All right. You got him, Addison? Yeah, thanks. Okay, Bridgette, you said you had some jokes on that.
Yeah, but the FCA or FCC said I can't share them, so I'll be fine over here.
Okay.
I checked the rules.
Okay, just to make sure. Yeah, all the way back and
Yeah.
before the 50s, they used to name them like Alpha, Delta, Roman names, you name it. I mean, but yeah, kind of interesting that it was in 79. I thought it'd be a little sooner than that.
I'm not that surprised that it wasn't until 79. And frankly, I don't know. There's so many names that could be either male or female at this point. I don't know that it matters. So I'd like to introduce Hurricane Pat.
There you go. Okay. Yep. Either one. Yep.
That would have covered up ground for everybody. So really, I'm not surprised, but I do thank all of those callers who reached out on the JLA insurance phone line today. 701-293-9000 is that number. And you can call us here throughout the show. We appreciate it when you do. You can also watch us today on Facebook, YouTube, and Acres TV. And so that is found under WDAY, Weather and Ag in Focus. On any of those sites, you can subscribe and enjoy seeing the show happen every day. In fact, as we have assistant ag directors from time to time, we pick up new followers because grandma doesn't want to miss a thing. So we appreciate the fact that they are definitely logging in to be a part of what we do. And that means a lot over here. Now, some of the things that we should be keeping an eye out for, with the hot weather that we've had, Dean, a concern, especially in an area if you haven't had as much rainfall as of yet, would be stagnant standing water, because cyanobacteria becomes a concern. That's essentially blue-green algae. That blue-green algae brings with it toxins that not only affect cattle, but horses and sheep, as well as people. And those toxins can affect us through the liver and basically in all sorts of neurological ways. If you have cyanobacteria, again, the blue-green algae, you've probably gotten it because it's been stagnant standing water. Maybe you haven't had fresh runoff that's come in, and the hot weather really produces the right conditions for that algae to grow. When those symptoms show up in your livestock, you would see weakness. If it's liver toxicity, it would be pale-colored mucus, mental derangement, bloody diarrhea. This sounds terrible. This is like the worst side effects commercial one could ever hear. Then also when the cyanobacteria, muscle tremors, difficulty breathing, even convulsions, both with enough toxicity can lead to death. If you aren't sure if your stock dams, dugouts, whatever you want to call them, might have cyanobacteria in them, you can take water samples, send them in to the NDSU Veterinary Diagnostic Lab or a commercial lab and have them tested. But if you do, make sure to wear gloves when you're doing the testing because, again, those toxins can also affect you as a human being. Now, with the fresh runoff we've had due to so much rain, I would like to think that we've been moving enough moisture around, whether it's through the runoff, maybe through streams, etc., that we've had fresh water to reduce the risk of cyanobacteria, but I think it's still something we have to pay attention to as livestock producers every day. And so we encourage people to be sure to do that. Well, when we return from our livestock update from the American Ag Network, we'll be joined by Matt Ronken. Matt is with Uncommon Farms. He's the CEO. What's so uncommon about their farm? Well, we'll find out when Matt tells us, and we'll do that right after this. Just like we want a smooth harvest, you want to make sure your technology on the farm or in your agribusiness is going smoothly. Are all of your checkpoints protected? Well, you should make sure to get onto techsupport.farm to find out if you are covered. Take the fence check assessment to be sure if you are well covered or if there's things you need to do to improve the cybersecurity for your farm and agribusiness. We have with us today Matt Ronken, and he is with Uncommon Farms. So, Matt, we just need to know right off
Good
the bat,
afternoon.
what,
Yeah.
what's Uncommon Farms?
Yeah, well, glad you asked, and awesome to be with you guys. So thank you so much. I think, yeah, why don't I give you just a few seconds here on who we are and talk about why we're still relevant today, 60 years later. So we were started as a financial solutions company working with farm operators back in the 1960s. And in the early 2000s, the founder of our company had gone through all the livestock consolidation, within cattle, within pork, and said, this same dynamic is going to happen within row crop farming. And, farmers need to be ready. They need to up their game. And so the Family Farms Group was launched in the mid 2005, 2006 timeframe. And we've operated as a business advisor for family farms ever since. And we changed our brand identity in 2023 to Community of Uncommon Farms.
That's a name change I wasn't even aware of. The Community of Uncommon Farms. So, what constituted that brand name change?
Yeah, perfect. So I think just like in every industry, there's the top 5% rule. And I give the story. I've got two teenage boys at home, and we talk sports all the time, and we talk about all the greats in the Hall of Fame and those that make the All-Star game, and et cetera, et cetera. And it came down to what makes those top 5% different, what makes them uncommon relative to the rest of the players in the league, so to speak. And that can be applied to every industry, and it's applied to agriculture as well. And that we know, the challenges and pressures that all farm operators have today. And we know what the statistics say, and what's happening here in terms of, the number of farms that will get passed on to the next generation versus the number of farms that just won't be here. And so for those farm operators that have the foresight to think about, okay, I've got to up my game. I've got to think like a CEO. I've got to think from a strategic framework. I better work with somebody that can help me have that skill set. And so that's why we exist. And so we work with farm operators across the entire U.S. and even up into Canada, of all sizes. And our main interest is how do we just make a real difference for these guys in the key areas on the business side of things, not so much on the farming side of things, but just how to run their business at an A+ level and that top 5% level, and quite frankly at an uncommon level.
And Matt, how do you get new members?
Yeah, so we certainly it's the type of business where word of mouth, and so we like I said, we've got over 100 farms that have a membership within the Uncommon Farms community, and then there's another few hundred farms that we work with in financial solution sides, et cetera. And so a lot of who we come across and who we have good conversations with about joining Uncommon Farms comes from our existing membership base. It also comes from a number of strategic partners, at every levels. I mean, the Nutrients and the Rabobanks, et cetera, down to, some of the biologicals and innovation companies, et cetera. And so as they get working with us and they get to meet who our members are and the impact that we've had with them, then we start the conversation. Would you like to be a part of what we've got going on?
I would take a guess, as a company that started in the 60s in financials, or excuse me, 60 years ago in the financial solutions area, you're finding that's probably as vital now, maybe even more than ever, when it comes to helping
More so.
your members with their finances. Right. How's their attitude right now? How are people doing, especially after the WDAY report on Tuesday?
Yes. So rhetorical question, obviously. I mean, nobody's.
I know. We're not experts.
Of course. Yeah. Just about every time I get a chance to speak, and my first two questions are, who's feeling great about their numbers this year, and who feels like they can put their business on autopilot over the next 5 or 10 years, and or just who feels like they can use the same toolbox that they've been using before, the same toolbox that they learned from their dad or from their uncle or whoever their mentor was within the operation. So you're exactly right. That's where you start. You have to have mastery over your financials, and that's any business, but in particular farming businesses. And I just think there's a huge gap there with a very high percentage of farms that, hey, let's just see where we end up at the end of the year. I mean, let's sell the crop and see if we've covered all of our expenses. And that, as we know, is just a very dangerous way to run a business, especially when you get to a scale and a size that some of these guys are getting to. And with as many different entities and key stakeholders that are involved, multiple generations on the farm, et cetera, you've got to create that foundation, and it starts with financials. No question about it.
So with those financials, and I know this isn't a question that I put on a list ahead of time to say, hey, Matt, this is something I'm going to ask because it just occurred to me. But
Great.
if you think
Fire
about
away.
your members, okay, so out of the 60 years, how many years have you been with the community of Uncommon Farms?
Yeah, great question. So my personal journey, I come from the corporate world, and so I was with Nestle Purina Pet Care, Pet Foods for 25 years, and I just had an itch to get to a more entrepreneurial space. I could do the corporate thing, I could do it very well, but just wanted for the second half of my career really work with entrepreneurs in some form or fashion. Little did I know that I would be in the agriculture space. And so, I like to say Family Farms Group at the time found me, and it was a gift. And so farmers are, as we know, the quintessential entrepreneurs. I mean, the risk that all of these guys have to take every year, just putting it all on the line, and just how visible their performance is to their community and to their peers. And so you talk about pressure. And so I actually, like I said, I was found by Family Farms when they were going through a transition, looking for new leadership. And what they loved about me was my corporate background and just bringing that strategic framework, because that's exactly what we do for our farmer clients. Again, we assume that they're very good farmers, but it's the business side of things. So things like strategic planning and even succession planning, which these are all family farms. And so they're all going through that. You mentioned the financial solutions aspect of this, risk management, the people and the leadership side of things. So it's we run the gamut, but what I hope I bring is a lot of that corporate experience that we can teach our members and our clients to have that same level of rigor.
So when I set that question up for you, how long have you been in there? This leads to the second part of my question, and that is, when you think about your farms, and we talk a lot right now about transition planning because there's so much going on from one generation to the next. Do you think you know a percentage or just a rough estimate of how many of your farms are going to the next generation versus being sold and merged somewhere else? And I ask that because I constantly get the feedback from listeners saying, but everybody's selling out and they're just going to corporate farms. Well, I don't think that's quite true, but I don't know how to put a number on that.
Yeah, great question. And so the number that I've seen just out in the industry is a very high number. 80 to 90% of farms don't appear that they're going to go to the next generation. And there's been plenty of work and research done in terms of why that is the case. And the least of which is this next generation just doesn't have quite the same level of interest, at least at a macro basis, that past generations have had. I think out of our group that number is going to be significantly smaller, but there's a high R squared there between why they're signed up to be a part of the Uncommon Farms community, because they do have that interest, they do have that desire, and most of them do have some chance at some lineage that comes in. We have some members that it won't, and they know it. What's cool about our community is then we can start to match them up with a younger farmer, or a farmer that does have the next generation coming on, and they can start to work together in a partnership or a consortium of some kind. And I think we're going to see more of that just in the general industry. But to your point, there will be a high percentage of farms that will not be passed on to the next generation. And so for those that do want to continue and not only survive but thrive, there'll be plenty of opportunity, of course, with land becoming available and for them to be able to grow.
Oh, there's more to build on with that. So Matt, stay with us. we're going to go to the news for just a little while, and when we return, we'll continue our conversation. We are visiting with Matt Ronken with the community of Uncommon Farms. He's our CEO. Plus, you can give us phone calls on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. That wheat field is progressing right along out there, and that is our 2025 Here We Grow wheat field, where we are raising commercial seed wheat. We are doing that in conjunction with our farm cooperators, Jim and Michael Hewlin, near just southwest of Gardner, North Dakota. If you drive by the field and you can snap a picture of our QR code, that leads you right to our website where you can give us your guess on our bushels. that if you're the winner, you're going to get a rain gauge from Darter Plastics and also a $100 gas gift card for you. So send those in. You can even email me just directly at the station, ag@flagfamily.com. I'm collecting all of those yield guesses and waiting to see who's the big winner. Two of our sponsors for that project are Progressive Ag. They are your risk management specialists. In fact, just had a chat with Ray Robansky earlier this week on Monday, and we talked a lot about what was happening in the grain markets. And then secondly, Vision Ford. And Ward Cater down at Vision Ford would be very much excited to do business with you pre or post harvest. And if there's something you see on their website that you like, you're not sure if you want to buy, they'll drive it out to you just so you can take a look at it. So check them out at Drive with Vision. That's Vision Ford in Wahpeton. So we have with us today our guest, who is Matt Ronken. He is with the community of Uncommon Farms. He is their CEO, and we're just visiting about what they present and do with all of their members. And one question I have before, I know Dean has some as well, Matt, was when you think about the length of time that your members are a part of the group, are they there throughout quite a long period of history in their farm process, or are you able to kind of build them up and move them on to their next level? What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. And I will say that when we enter a relationship with a member and they become a part of our community, and there's a reason why we do refer to it as a community, because it is that. I mean, there are a lot of great business advisors out there, and so I hope this doesn't come across as a 30-minute commercial for Uncommon Farms. It's really around
No, it's not. Okay.
building the right mindset and again applying those principles, those business principles that are just needed so dearly in every industry, and then particularly within farming. But you had asked about how long we work with somebody, and so we're not a project based company, and we're not, our approach isn't, hey, we're going to teach you a few things, we're going to give you a checklist, and then we're going to send you on your way. And there are some great programs that have that type of model where you go and you just absorb it all, and you go home with a monster notebook of different ideas, et cetera. And so what makes us in particular effective, I think, is because it's a very high touch relationship. And so you sign on as a member, and we do a lot of work to onboard you and really understand your particular priorities and pinch points, and what keeps you up at night, and what are the challenges that you're going to face over the next few years. And then we assign a coach, which is what I like to think of as your Sherpa. It's a guided tour, if you will. And so that's the learning model. Is you won't be able to do it all in a year. You won't be able to do it all in 5 years. And there's so many different layers and dynamics and people that are involved, and people on your leadership team, and as we talked about, just multi-generations involved. And so there's always learning to be had. And so again, not a commercial for Uncommon Farms, but just my philosophy in life, just in general, is surround yourself with smart kids, and just have people around you that are going to challenge you and bring a different perspective. And that's also a very challenging piece of farming. It's just by nature physically isolated, and so there's not always those chances to share different ideas, and to have somebody that's going to challenge you or bring you ideas that they've seen work or not work, quite frankly, on different operations. So I'm actually currently down in Amarillo, Texas. That's where I'm calling from, and we're having a peer group this week with 15 of some of our largest farms, and we're just going through all of the challenges that they face, but quite frankly, farms of every size face. And so today we had a big module on mental health, and just we all know the statistics of in farming, just the suicide rates and just the pressures that farmers feel that's very different than other industries. So there's never a piece of the business model that doesn't need to be learned. So when we enter into a relationship, we typically stay with it, because we continue just to bring them value and bring them a network of folks that can challenge their thinking and that they can learn from.
And Matt, Uncommon Farms has six? I believe it's 6 key areas for farm leaders. Can you touch on some of those?
I can, yes. And so these aren't ones necessarily that we came up with ourselves. Again, just stealing with pride from other industries. But the 6 areas that we feel that a farm or farm operator needs to be not only proficient is, but excel in are succession planning, leadership and development, HR and people, financial solutions, risk management, and then succession planning, as we had talked about before. And if one can focus on those, and there's plenty of other areas that they need to be proficient in as well, but those are the ones that we said, hey, if you can get, think about a report card, an A or an A plus in all of those as you go through your business dealings, you're going to be in pretty good shape.
I have a question about the HR. So what are you offering as far as assistance to your members? Are you literally having someone who's taking care of everything from I-9s and W-4s to, I'm sorry, but we need to have a performance review for you? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's so think of our model. Like I said, we've got the coach that's the general contractor that will be the main contact with a client and be that Sherpa. And then across those those 6 areas that I just laid out, you have to go deeper. And so we've got resources behind the scene. And so our members think of us as each one of those areas like a fractional, chief people officer, if you will, or a head of HR. And so it's everything from, and it's not doing the work itself necessarily for them, but it's teaching them to fish. So it's teaching them, have a, methodical recruiting approach, put together benefit packages and programs. And so we bring a lot of benchmarking to them in terms of what other farms are offering, what other, farm workers value from their leadership. Do they value time off? Do they value 401k contributions? Do they value, having their health insurance covered, et cetera? And so it's teaching them that, but then it's bigger than that. It's all the other things, like you said. I mean, it's many farms don't have any kind of formal performance review program. Many farms don't have SOPs or even job descriptions. And so it's just that those foundational elements that we teach them to fish, and so that they can operate as a successful business.
Oh, I'd say that's probably a pretty big help. I came from a corporate background as well, and it's surprising, even in small agribusinesses, how we sometimes forget that performance reviews aren't necessarily bad. It just opens us both up as the employer and the employee as ways to improve what's going on in the operation.
That's right. Yeah. Feedback is a gift. It doesn't always feel like it, but it's better to have a framework. And that's what I've been told. I tell myself that as well. Sometimes it's hard to take, but at least there's a forum or a cadence to have those conversations. And you should never hear the worst news in your performance review, right? There should always be communication up into that point, but at least to have that cadence of check-ins is a powerful thing.
A question from one of our listeners. Do you also have folks involved in livestock production? We've talked a lot about what would affect a grain farm, but what about livestock?
Yeah, our focus, I mean, our bullseye, I would say, at least what we focused on to date, have been, row crop farmers that may or may not have livestock. So we're not heavy into the dairy industry, and we don't have any pure ranchers per se. But I would say, probably 15-20% of our farms have a livestock component to them. But we haven't focused directly against livestock, only operations.
Well, there's certainly a lot of diversity in all those situations, and you guys have found a way to bring it together in a nice package and work with your group. So, Matt, if you have folks that might be listening today thinking, I have further questions, where should they go to get them answered?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So uncommonfarms.com. If you get on there, we've spent quite a bit of time, trying to create a good understanding of who we are, and we've got a number of testimonials, and you'll actually see some webinars. In fact, that was something I was going to offer to your audience is that we do a series
Ah,
of webinars, and they're free, and so they're on different topics, and we've actually made them so that they fall on top of the 6 core areas that we do. And so we've had, I don't know, 3 or 4 this year already, and you can see the recordings of those online if you want. And then we've got a couple more, including next week. We've got a management and leadership webinar. They can go on our website and find out. We're also on social media, of course, all the major platforms. There you go. And so, yeah, it should be easy to find us, and there'll be some buttons on there that they can fill out a short form and just give us a little bit of information. What I'll also say, and many people say it, but not all people act this way, is, yeah, we don't want to help anybody that we don't feel like we can help and truly partner with. I guess that's a better term. And so, the conversation that starts is just, hey, what are your challenges, and if we can help, great. We'll tell you we can help, but if we can't, then I'm not interested in just normal businesses just pulling in revenue. So we look forward to having as many conversations as we can.
that is excellent. I really appreciate all of that information for those who are listening. And if you have been watching on the live stream, or if you have not, you can easily go back to the live stream, and we'll make sure that you can find all of this right on the website. So, Matt, thank you.
Do you mind if I give one personal shout out?
Please go right ahead.
Dangerous. Yeah. So Bridgette, yeah, no, actually, it's I saw all the bison paraphernalia behind you in where you are. What I will say, I live in St. Louis, and my son goes to high school, and one of his basketball classmates just signed with North Dakota State on the basketball program, so he'll be a freshman in the fall, Riley Massey, and so we look forward to coming up and seeing him. So go Bison!
Nice.
Excellent. I will make sure to help cheer him on. Thank you.
Right on. Yeah, right on. Thank you, guys.
It's always
Well,
good
I
to have
appreciate
more.
your time today.
It's always good to have more Bison fans, isn't it? That's awesome.
Yeah, there
It
you
is.
go.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, when we come back, we're going to have a recap of the weather. There are some storms in the forecast. Some of those could be severe later tonight. I'll run down the details on that, and Bridgette will have some ag topics to touch on. All that and more when we come back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. 1:53 in the afternoon. We've got temperatures outside in the lower 80s, and we'll make it up today into the mid-80s. Now, we're going to have a cold front that's going to be moving in to the region as we head into tonight, and that's going to trigger off some storms. The question is, what does the coverage of those storms look like? And our models are all over the place in terms of if they develop, and where they're going to develop. It looks like they will develop to the north of the FM area around 7 o'clock up in the northern valley and then sweep southward towards the FM area by about 10, 11 o'clock tonight. Now, some of those could be on the strong to severe side along that front, with the main threat being some large hail, possibly some damaging winds. And again, if our temperature is just above the surface at about 10,000 feet, if they stay too warm, we're not going to be able to develop those storms. So we've got to get a little cooling aloft, and if we do, those storms will quickly develop. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that again anytime after about 9 o'clock, between about 9 o'clock and midnight now. It looks like the storms, if they do indeed develop, will arrive in the area. So if you're going to be out and about during that time frame, just keep an eye out, and we'll be definitely keeping an eye on radar. And then the winds turn to the north overnight. That'll bring in temperatures into the low to mid-60s. And then a north wind tomorrow. Most of the day should be on the dry side with highs right around 80. And then we're going to have a frontal boundary that's going to be kind of meandering over the area over the next 3 to 5 days, giving us slight chances. Again, we're not looking at anything widespread, but slight chances for storms, mainly nighttime storms, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday. The one on Sunday I'm a little concerned about in terms of heavy rain down just in the far southeastern part of North Dakota and into eastern parts of South Dakota. We could see some very heavy rains from that, extend that into Lakes country as well before we start on a more drying trend as we head into later next week. And it looks like even drier weather as hurricane, I believe it's Aaron, approaches the East Coast next week. That kind of slows down all of our weather here in the lower 48, but as that exits later next week, we're going to get a flow coming in from Canada, and typically that's a drier flow. So we're going to start to dry out late next week into the following weekend with cooler weather, but like I said, it also looks much drier, a drier pattern as well, which is good news. We need the drier weather for our ag community for sure.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to get fixed, you might say, and part of that is the weather, so we can have some good harvest happening. Now, I also know that it looks like there's some potential for wet weather towards the end of September into harvest, etc. So folks are going to want to pay attention and don't miss out on any of those harvest windows. Many of us are already feeling like it's going to be maybe a tougher harvest than we anticipated. So we'll take what we can. Now, something else to keep in mind is as we get towards harvest, part of that harvest is going to be a corn crop much later this fall. And there are some myths out there about corn, sweet corn, that we should probably help folks understand. First of all, frozen and canned corn is less nutritious. No, not necessarily. You can enjoy sweet corn all year round, knowing that even frozen and canned varieties closely match the nutrient content of your fresh counterparts. A lot of vegetables are flash frozen after harvest. That's a time when that nutritional content is indeed the highest. So generally speaking, vitamins and minerals are unchanged by that process. And even canned vegetables may have a slightly fewer water-soluble vitamins like B and C. But overall, you're not losing anything in there. Then additionally, the fact that humans can't digest corn. Well, actually, corn kernels are the seeds. And that interior holds the germ, which is the corn embryo. There's a whole process, the outer shell is called the hull, etc. But the casing of corn passes through your system pretty intact. The inside of the kernel, however, does break down in your stomach and intestine, and that allows you to absorb the nutrients that you need coming out of corn. Sweet corn has fiber, makes you feel full, which is surprising considering some of you are eating like 3 or 4 cobs at a time.
Easily.
And it's a very good source of vitamin B as well. Yeah, people would like take 1 scoop of sweet corn out of the serving dish, but will eat 4 or 5 cobs. Doesn't translate to the same thing, you guys. What are we doing?
And don't forget
a little overzealous.
Don't forget the yummy butter you got to put on top of that too. I mean,
there'll be no corn without butter at this house.
That's right.
That. Okay.
Well, Well, that'll wrap it up for today's edition of Weather and Ag in Focus. Want to thank everybody for joining us. Don't go anywhere, though. The Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.